Welcome back to the Better Learning Podcast. We are continuing our conversations at EDspaces in Columbus, Ohio. We hope you're enjoying this series, and let's dive back in.
So go ahead, say your name, title, organization.
Jonathan Stanley, Director of Strategy for North America for Target North America.
Awesome.
I said North America twice.
Just want to emphasize that.
Yeah. Well, there is an interesting distinction. Like when people say U.S., you're not including Canada-ish. So even though it's 3 cities.
All right. So if you heard the term radically student-centered, what would that mean to you? How would you describe that?
Wow, because radical has like this it's not messy, but it's like the highest level of passion that you can have about something. And it means that you are going to break down whatever's standing in the way to be able to get to the end result. So radical has this like, I think about radical like known soccer players like a Messi or Michael Jordan in basketball. You have these extremely, like they're going to do whatever it takes to be able to get to the end result. An end result might be unique, like you didn't expect. So then the outcome becomes radical as well.
Yeah. Love it. That's a great way to phrase it. I like that. All right. So one of the things that we're talking about here at EDspaces in Columbus, Ohio, second greatest city in the world.
Wait, what's the predictor of that?
Oh, it is.
Does it have anything to do with the university?
I mean, that's one of the factors,
Okay.
but not the only one.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the Chinese food here good or something?
I lived here for 15 years. I have this like unusual like passion towards this city that I no longer live in. But I love it here.
By the way, this is my 3rd podcast I've ever been on, and I think it's my favorite already.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Don't worry. We could destroy that.
Oh, well, okay. There's still time.
Still time. Day ain't over yet. So, all right. So one of the things we're talking about at EDspaces is this idea of when a community has an opportunity to either build a new one or do a major renovation, how do we avoid this like overwhelming sense that we get here of like we're getting better at it, but we're still missing opportunities to get the full impact? So one of the questions that you picked that's tied around here is, can you share an example of when implementation didn't go exactly as planned on your project? What did you learn and how did you adjust?
Wow. The first thing that I thought about when you started into the question was the school bond. And I think that the tragedy in that is not passing the school bond. And I'm not going to dwell there. We'll get into the rest of the question. But when the community is in such dire need, but yet the people in the community didn't get the story right. And they didn't see the need where there's so much, like when you get up to that point and you sat down with the teachers or the principals that would be impacted by the need and you hear their stories, it is crystal clear that there is a massive gap in delivery. My second answer to that is value engineering. And I think that the struggle around value engineering is this critical need to get something done that is, whether it's specified by the architect firm or the end user has spent so much time making their decision, and then you get to the 11th hour and you're over budget. And I'm speaking in a language zone that everybody is very familiar with, and now I'm going to introduce this term called unintended consequences. And the unintended consequences aren't always realized because there is a newness that we open, we're excited, we still got warm, safe, and dry. But what we didn't get were the things that made that next, let's just introduce or reintroduce the word radical. We didn't get the radical outcome that we were hoping for. And what's happened is if you have one-time money on that bond, you only get one chance to do it right. And what we're talking about is typically a fraction of the cost. That's going to have a 50-year impact. We're building 50-year schools, hopefully longer, but That's the typical is, we're going to take this offline and intended in 50 years. By the way, most people that are here at the show won't be here in 50 years, right?
Right.
So we're making, when you say future ready schools or future ready this or that you're making decisions that are going to last the whole future generations, not just even generation, but and that's the consequence. What I think is so sad about it is, and there was a book written by Rex Miller, which was all about putting the right teams in place so that there are no surprises at the end, and that the system is really unintentionally designed for that disaster to happen. And so the part of the solution is getting people together at the table early enough so that there are no surprises, so value engineering doesn't happen. So I circle back to say, here's part of the result of fixing part of that problem. But yeah, I think those two things. One is making sure that the bond passes and making sure that you don't hit those value engineering unintended consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is amazing how with the proper planning and foresight early on and the collaboration that happens early on, hopefully that can avoid what happens with the value engineering that could happen at the end of the project that can completely derail everything that, they've been working on for, in many cases, years. And then at the last minute finding like, oh, we don't have the budget for this. Let's start all over again. And let's figure out how we can trim it down.
Or we're too late. It's like, this is the only amount of money that's been approved. Yeah. It's now we're facing the value engineering, which is why I'm hearing a lot more about storytelling than I ever had before. And really only in the last 5 years. If you follow storytelling back a decade, brands appear like Disney. And what I found about storytelling is that you have a villain and you have a hero and you have a guide, right? Those three things. And I think sometimes we want to be seen as the hero, and in actuality, who we truly are in most situations is a guide. We're trying to make the heroes of the school the heroes, and the consultancy of, furniture or learning environment ecosystem, or, we're guides in that model. But a lot of times we find ourselves stuck in identifying who's the real villain, because sometimes the villain's not the who. It's that we're the villain while we're trying to be the guide because we didn't do a great job on storytelling.
Yeah, that's an interesting twist to what you have there. Because usually we talk about that the villain is the status quo. It's this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way we have to do it. And that's usually what we have to overcome, is that change in mindset.
And that mindset has massive unintended consequences. And those individuals, a lot of times, are the salt of the earth. They're really good people.
Correct.
They're too afraid to unpack, look at the data. And by the way, probably nobody did a good job telling them the story.
Yeah. I mean, you're right on what a lot of those discussions of, like the hero of the story is not us. It's typically, like whoever is making those decisions, whether, and we're always trying to reframe it too, of like, it's not the school leader. It's really the hero is the community or the students or the educators. And those are the heroes of the story. And then framing that, like, the villain is the status quo. It's this unknown that we have to overcome that together. And that's where the guide comes in with a plan. And I think that's where us as like industry professionals, where we've seen this happen, play out over and over again, where this is the one shot, that one-time money that you talk about for the community, is that we have to be able to show the plan on there, because based on, if we can guide them the right way, it can end in a happy story, or it could end in a nightmare or a tragedy, or the missed opportunities that we talk about.
I would add to that, sometimes people don't really understand what they're getting. Like if they haven't passed a bond in a while, they don't know what they're getting for what that means. All they understand is that we don't want to incur new debt as a community. And the bond business is a very, it's almost like I think about it in our industry, sometimes people don't understand contracts. So it becomes this taboo of, I don't want to get myself into the legality issue or this or that. I think bonds are the same same way. The better you do on educating your community about a bond and how, not only how it works, what they're taking on, but also what they're getting in return. But I also think that there's a very poor substance happening with when you build a new school or you do a entire new modernization, right? Capital renewal, is that what does the community actually get to see? And I think that there needs to be a transition in our industry that, yes, the athletic complex, right? So people typically will see a new field, like new turf, right? And they see what did they wrap the exterior with? They had the school itself has to be highly active in the story, not just the school board on positionability. The community has to intersect with the principal, with the teachers, and I think that can be notched up a couple levels.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for joining us for this special EdSpaces edition of the Better Learning Podcast. We hope today's conversation sparked new ideas and reminded you just how powerful student-centered learning environments can be. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and share it with someone who's passionate about improving education. And as always, keep pushing forward, keep rethinking what's possible, and keep making learning better, one space at a time. We'll see you in the next episode.